All right, so this is a Skype conference between myself, Strictly Sega Europe, NB987001, and Tobias Brockmiller. Is that it?
Tobias, but Toby Brocky, his name is the YouTube account is.
Okay, so
Give us another Mamma Mia, Toby.
Mamma Mia.
That's the way.
so the first item I want to talk about is I think features that gamers demand. They often demand really awesome features without necessarily considering whether or not the designers themselves feel that they can, realistically achieve it. And I think it's good for gamers to have that demand there. It does create a market where designers have to push themselves, but at the same time, sometimes gamers aren't really understanding of what the designers can and cannot do. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I think that there's a big demand for what people want. Everyone wants some kind of different thing or some kind of feature taken away.
Yeah, a lot of people want something different. Like, one person might want one thing, but then another person might want another. So how are you going to make everyone happy?
Well, there's that. I'm more talking about specifically features that may be demanding and that the designers may not necessarily know how to do, like, making all sorts of things happen at one time that, the processor can't necessarily handle, and that you would have to trick the processor really well to get it to do. And the gamers will argue, well, it is somehow possible to do it. And it's like, yeah, you get behind the desk and you try to make it happen, and then you can talk, At the same time, I can understand there being good that gamers demand it, though, because it's like, well, if gamers demand it, then some designer might just find a way to do it. But at the same time, they can be a little bit mean to the designers at times.
We're not exactly in a state of age where we're having problems with processor power because we haven't even managed to push these systems that we're using at the moment to their optimal capability yet.
That is true to an extent. I mean, it's not. None of this is cut and dry. I do think sometimes they get a little bit lazy, but sometimes it's also because they're trying to meet deadlines that are forced on them by the execs. So the problem isn't necessarily with the designers, but the execs don't always get blamed. More often than not, the designers get blamed instead of the execs when it's the execs' fault.
I think the big demand right now is having like first-person shooters with RPG elements, and not everyone can really do that with balance issues and everything.
Well, I mean, look at Fallout 3. There's so much content in it that you can literally argue that it's worth 10 games. And you don't have to be a genius to figure out that it took a long time to do all that. Yeah, you can do it, but I mean, think about how much production time, how much money goes into making something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they had tried to charge $100 for that, just to compensate for all the design time that had to be done.
It's gone right back all the way till, the Atari days, the old Atari days. There's this famous programmer called Howard Scott Warshaw, and he made a game called E.T.
Yeah.
And he was actually a really, really good programmer and game designer. He made a game before that called Yar's Revenge. And it was one of the best games on the Atari 2600 full stop, right?
Yeah.
Because he was under such time constraints from the executives, like you just mentioned before, Marsan, he came out with a pretty average game. And, of course, in the history books, he's the one who cops the blame, not the executives that gave him only 3 months to create the whole game.
That's actually only true to a large number of websites are actually blaming the short design time. It's just that you have to be someone who's actually interested in full details to find them. If you're someone who just wants to do a cursory read, you're probably not going to find that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I would like to know if these ET cartridges are really in the desert.
Yeah, they are, but they're crushed and
they've been
cemented
driven
over.
over by a bulldozer. Yeah, that's the thing. They've been flattened by a bulldozer. So even if they are found, they're going to be like just plastic melded together. And you know how the Sonic fan base is.
And that's another problem with the designer and gamer disconnect is the fact that fanboys will often buy the game no matter what, and it won't matter how much it pisses them off. They'll go buy it, and they'll say, well, I don't like it, but I'm buying it anyway. And the designer just feels, well, I don't have to do shit. And you can't blame them for being lazy whenever the fanboys are acting like that. It's just that they kind of neglect the fact that there's a lot more fans that they could have buying their product if only they would actually work hard. Because I guarantee you, you could have at least twice the people buying Sonic games right now if Team Sonic would try a little bit harder. to an extent, the same can be said about time will tell, depending on how Other M goes. But I feel the Metroid franchise might be going that way.